I'm going to hand it over to my American friends.
Liz, do you wanna say hello and kick it off?
Yeah, I'll just say hello. I'm just kind of, Jeremy's the real talent here. I'm just here to listen, and I will also, I'm going to be creating, Michelle, as we're going, a landing page with resources relevant based on what is discussed here. So I have some resources in there, but based on what everyone states their needs are and how the discussion goes, I'll tweak it as necessary.
Amazing, fantastic. Okay, over to you, Jeremy.
All right, so we're actually going to start off. Since this is a small enough group, I'm going to drop a question in chat first, and then I would love for your all's feedback. And so the question is, what is one of your biggest pain points in supporting your executive? And I'll drop this here. And I kind of gave numbers that way if it's easy for you just to drop a number.
An allergic reaction to something, because it was really itchy on Sunday night before I went to bed, and woke up in the morning and it was just like really.
Danielle, can you put yourself on mute, please, Dale?
And I'll give everybody a moment. So I put in a few answers there in the chat. So communicating in a remote context, that's a pain point that we've heard a lot over the past several months. Needing frequent one-on-ones or chats to stay connected or in sync with those you support. Losing track of messages or to-dos that get sent via email. We've heard Slack, we've heard WhatsApp, Microsoft Teams, basically all the places that assistants get pinged by folks like myself when we need help or have things that we are concerned about or worried about. Not sure about what the most impactful thing to do, so we'll give it folks. Okay, we got a bunch of questions in here, keeping them on task. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so got a bunch of threes.
Yeah.
And a couple of ones. Okay, losing track of messages and to-dos that get sent via email, calendar, SMS, and all the other things. Perfect. So I am actually going to start there since that was a frequent pain point. So this is something that we've heard from many assistants that my executive, and not just my executive, but those that they are supporting. And so if you're supporting a C-level or a VP or a director, a lot of times they might have other direct reports and or other people that they work with that as an assistant, you end up getting to-dos or messages and things that you end up having to handle. So this is a frequent pain point that we've heard. And so I am going to start sharing my screen, and we have one of the solutions that we have created is aimed at directly at this. So first, high level, for those that don't know anything about BASE, we have created the first and only platform built specifically for assistants and for the pain points and workflows that you experience all the time. So one of those, and the very first thing that we solved for, was assistants have to switch between anywhere between 10 and 20 different applications every day just to get their work done, because no application is built for an assistant or the way an assistant works. And so we're kind of pulling all of that information into one place. And it is our passion to build tools that truly elevate assistants, to help them save time, save brain space, and then help them to be more strategic with the time saved. That's kind of fundamentally what we are trying to do. And now I'm going to show you one of the ways that we do that. So, okay, should be able to see my screen, hopefully. So this right here is a product that we just opened up that actually is still in early access, but we have a couple dozen people working with, and the feedback has been tremendous. So this is called Inbox. And I'm going to start with Inbox, and then I'm going to take you through a couple of different pieces here. So right now, what you're looking at is some messages I just sent into my inbox. And so when you sign up, you're going to, and once you have access to Inbox, you can come in here and you can see that we've given you a custom email alias that you can then, that what we recommend is storing that in your contacts and or in your executives contacts. We have assistants that actually have their executives sending them tasks directly now. But once you save this in your contacts, you can just type in base inbox and connect your Slack if that's one of the places, because we hear very frequently that messages, in particular in Slack and MS Teams, which we are working on MS Teams right as we speak. So whatever you see in Slack, you can essentially imagine for Microsoft Teams, if that's what you're primarily using for instant message and chat communication. That'll be coming very shortly. But there's messages there, they get lost because it's this endless stream of information that doesn't really have a good way to prioritize. And that is fundamentally what Inbox is meant to solve. So you can actually, I'm gonna share my whole screen here. Now that I realize I didn't do that. So you can see exactly what this looks like in Slack. All right, you can see Slack now, right? Yeah, all right, perfect. So imagine I have this message that I need to store and this task that got sent to me, right? So in Slack, you can literally just hover over this and go save. And that is going to, there's two because I already prepared this from before, but you can see immediately that shows up in my inbox. The same if you forward a message to your inbox custom alias, that comes directly into here so that you have that stored and now you can do something with it. Now, what might you want to do with that? So frequently, these things become tasks. So I'm gonna kind of show you that workflow first. So please schedule a call with Shelly to discuss product plans and this reminder that I sent myself earlier, because if you've ever used Slack reminders, what is the first rule of Slack reminders? You end up resetting the reminder because you don't have time to do it, right? This is not just you, it is everyone who uses Slack and uses their reminders, which essentially renders it not very useful. So what are we gonna do now? We're gonna assign these items, and I have all of these workspaces. You would never have this many, I'm sure. I test a lot, and so I have lots of accounts, but we imagine each workspace generally represents the person that you're supporting, the executive you're supporting. So let me go over to Sarah Roman, and I'm gonna create these as new tasks for her. And you can see instantly what I've done is I have now pushed these Slack things over into my task list. And in my task list, I've got the details of that. If there was an attachment, that would be stored down here in the attachments. So in just a moment, I'm going to be able to complete that. So now this is captured in a valuable place. So now this is my task list. I want to show you what does this task list do, because this task list is not like any task list you've experienced before, because again, the entire platform that we've created here is fundamentally built the way assistants work, or at least from the hundreds of conversations we've had, the way that assistants work. I'm going to reshare just this screen just so that you can see it bigger in case anybody's on a small screen. Sorry, 1 second here. Okay, so back at this task list. So in this case, I need to schedule a call with Shelly to discuss product plans. Okay, so there's a few things. First of all, I need to prep my video preview to add to, can't type. Prep my video preview. I need to make sure, determine all stakeholders, and I need to find out what time works best, right? Let's just say. So here's a few different subtasks that might fall off of this. So in this case, what I figured out is, okay, so I've already taken care of this prep video preview. That's all done. Determine the stakeholders. Actually, I don't know, as the assistant, I don't know the answer to this. I need to find out something from my executive that wasn't, that I don't have the insight to, or maybe somebody else. So what I can do is I can pull this down into questions. And what this does is this automatically drafts and associates a question into our decision stream product with no additional work. So right here, I might say, add a description, who would you like on the call? And rather than an open response, I have an idea, I just don't know exactly. So I'm gonna make this a multi-select and make this super easy for my executive and go, Suzanne, Jonathan, Annie. And then I'll leave an open field just in case they want to add someone else. So now I've got this question that I've drafted. Let's imagine now is the time I want to send that to them. This is another pain point that that kind of flows into the same thing that was described of, I have all of these different tasks and things that come in through different sources, and it's hard to keep track of them. And so Decision Stream helps with that problem by keeping all of your answers in one location, as well as giving you a single way of kind of making it super easy for your executive to answer those questions. So you notice that I created the curated answers that I think that they're going to choose, because generally assistants know those things. They just aren't certain of all of the things. And by doing that, it makes it super, super easy for the executive to give you an answer, which speeds up the time to get those answers. So I've got another one here that I'm going to include in this stream. So I know this is a good time to push them, these questions to them. So I'm going to share these questions, and you can drop this in a link to any application. So whether that's Microsoft Teams or WhatsApp or whatever. We don't have support for Australian numbers yet, although we got the request in last week for SMS. But you can drop it into Slack or add it into a digest. So in this case, I'm just going to copy this link. Like imagine you drop this into Microsoft Teams, or maybe you just drop this to them in iMessage or something like that. So now they get this question stream, which is super easy for them to answer. And by and large, executives love this because it shows the executive, when you're giving them the answers that you think that they're going to put in, that you're thinking ahead of them, that you are preparing the way for them. And I can tell you, when Debbie, who's my awesome assistant, does this for me, it makes it so much easier because I don't have to go and think through and then type out those things, right? I can just literally go, Susie and Annie. I don't need Jonathan. Oh yeah, you don't know this, but Edward is Jones just joined the team, right? So I can click that over to her, and I don't know right now, so I'm going to skip this question. I don't know the answer to that one. I have to think about that later. So now going back over into base, you can see that instantly that this was skipped, and this one has shown up in your answered questions. When we go back to that task, if you remember, we created this from a task, right? So this answer is linked to this question, right? So you've got that quick reference back to exactly what we just did, right? We're preparing this project that started as a Slack message that became a task with multiple subtasks that connected to a question. So all of this interconnectivity is exactly, again, is what we have heard is the way that many assistants work, is they've got all these kind of disparate things. And prior to this, most of what we've heard is, okay, I have Asana for this and Slack for this, or Todoist for this, and Microsoft Teams for this. And then I'm sending an email over here, and then I'm texting my executive to get this answer. And all of those things are now separated in different places, which creates the opportunity for, not that any assistant ever makes a mistake, but sometimes stuff slips through the cracks, or there's a delay in those things because they're all disconnected, right? And think about just the headspace that it requires to be able to be switching. I don't have to tell you all how difficult that is. I know the job is very difficult, as I've had many, many user interviews with lots and lots of assistants. And so we are trying to fundamentally to bring all of that together. So this is just one workflow that we see when we think about that problem that you just described, of having all of these disparate places of to-dos and things that have to get done. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm just going to open it up for a second in case anybody has any questions or wants me to answer anything, since I think we're still only 20-ish people, so I think it's fine to do that. So any questions or things that I can answer there? You're all just so focused.
So Jeremy, at the moment we can't use WhatsApp for Australia because the numbers haven't been activated, but when it is, we literally just copy and paste it into the WhatsApp group and a link appears and it opens up on the screen, and then they can just tick the boxes. It's as simple as that.
Exactly. So it's just a link that takes them to a web app where that's styled mobily. So I'm showing you here on a desktop,
yep.
But it's all mobile responsive. So it looks like that kind of experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
And did you say we can or can't do it in Microsoft Teams at the moment? Or it's coming.
You can drop the link in there, but we don't have a direct push connection to Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
So like with Slack, for example, you can actually set up the Slack and it will automatically push directly there. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Because we know many people are are working within the Microsoft environment. So they're a little harder to work with. That's the hard thing. This is everything with Microsoft. They're a little harder to work with, but we're almost there on the Microsoft Teams integration. So
yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back to Inbox and I'm going to show you a different workflow. So the second thing that, another thing that we know is that a lot of the important and key context that ends up being necessary pieces of information later gets shared within these other disparate applications that makes it difficult to find when the time comes. And so what you can also do is, so imagine this is a email that I want to save for maybe this is that donor list that I was talking about. So now I can take this item and I can push this to a custom note, or I could add it to an existing one. So if I had an existing donor list, I could push this to attach that directly. And it helped me because I didn't select who I wanted to send this to. So I want to send this to Sarah's. And now this is stored in the dossier custom note. So in this one, this is just pasting this email here. But if you can imagine, I've got something that I want to store this to, and we're adding in, we also have contacts. And so this one might be better for a contact. And we're working on that very shortly with the Microsoft Teams. So that'll be here in the next 2 weeks. So a lot of this context, so maybe this is details about a summer home, or maybe this is about another office, or maybe this is something else that you're storing on behalf of your executive. And that context, when you have to go find it, then means I have to try and remember which application was this shared in, where was it, or you've got to try and remember to then copy and paste this into some sort of Word document or whatever method. I've heard all kinds of different methods of trying to store this. So we've created Dossier to make it super easy to format and store all of that information that you naturally connect as you support your executive. And now again, because a lot of that information flows through some of these other channels, we've created a source for pulling those things in so you can push them really, really easily. So what was the other question that I saw frequently? There was another one. What was question number one? I can't see the chat anymore. Let's see.
What was in the chat, the first question?
Oh, communicating in a remote context. We had a few people vote for number one. So now I'll kind of talk about that, which is also connected with what we already said. So one of the things that, I'd love to do another poll, and maybe if you have your cameras on, I'll kind of scroll really quickly. Do you send any kind of contextual information to your executive around calendar events, tasks, or projects that are in flight, when they're traveling, any kind of travel details. Do you send these sorts of things to your executive? You could kind of just maybe raise your hand or shake your head. I see a few people. Okay, looks like almost everybody. So again, this is something fairly common that we've heard for assistants. And I would say in our experience, it's actually a best practice to be sending these sorts of impactful contextual pieces of information to your executive on a frequent basis, because it helps to create an understanding from which they will know how to receive that information from you. So, but these often are time consuming to build because you have to aggregate all this information, you have to retype it or find some way of doing that. So we've created a tool that isn't just for that specific use case. There's lots of different use cases for it, but this is one that is frequent. And so we've created this thing called Digest Builder. And with Digest Builder, you're able to connect your calendars, assuming we support Office 365, Microsoft Exchange, Google, kind of all of the major providers. And once you have those linked together, you can see here on the sidebar, you've got all of your calendars that represent this individual here. And that could be, 2 or 10, however many it is that you need to manage all of the things around their schedule. And we've created one, we already have templates, but then you can also build your own. So what we're looking at is the 30-day challenge daily digest. So we actually have a 30-day challenge that we have found when assistants do these specific things, and that is send a daily digest to their executive every day for 30 days. We have done surveys and measures and found that every single assistant has responded that they feel more proactive, better in the loop as to what is going on. And from executives' point of view, every single one has reported either feeling better prepared at the start of the day or better able to focus on strategic activities because they're not spending their time on the tactical things. And what we often see in these digests are, here is key questions, either whether they're surrounding email, again, which Inbox can now pull those things in for you, or tasks that you have, which again, you can embed decision streams directly in this document. So they have one thing to focus on. Status updates around tasks. Now, you cannot yet pull the tasks directly into this digest, but you guessed it, we're working on that right now. So that isn't too far away. So you'll be able to actually pull in things either based on the status, like open or done, or any of those, or tags that you might have, or just pull them in one by one and have all of that linked in one location, as well as your calendar. So this is another thing, like key events for that day, depending on what their schedule looks like. You might want to include all of them, or you might want to curate those for certain ones. And you can, in just minutes, build this, because we have, again, you create the template or use one of the templates that we already provide you. You can pull this info in, and in merely minutes, have an essentially error-free and clearly communicated piece of not just status, but vital information that your executive then begins to habitually understand. This is all the information I'm going to receive from my assistant, which we've seen cut down on the need for super frequent one-on-ones, which are expensive and time consuming and sometimes difficult to get with your executive, while at the same time, ultimately putting you in a more proactive position, because you're just helping your executive to kind of keep their eyes up, if they would, on those more strategic things without having to dive down to find the context. What we have found is that we have executives with assistants who are doing this that actually run, and I'm not saying every executive would do this, but run their day completely from their digest. So we have one pairing that I've spoken to multiple times where she calls it a day pack, and she sends her director this day pack, and literally everything for her is in that day pack. Linked documents, calendar events with Zoom calls or phone calls, linked from that digest, all of those things in one place. And they, every single day, they then store those digests. So there's like this historical record of what happened, which I'm sure it never happens with your exec, but sometimes it's helpful to have that historical record to be able to say, yes, I did in fact send you that thing and give that thing to you, because sometimes we forget. Maybe I'm the only one, but that sometimes happens to me. So this is Digest Builder, and this is a really, really helpful tool for communicating not only this kind of context, but all kinds of different contexts that you have. So for myself, I start out my day pretty early. So Debbie schedules my daily digest ahead so that at 5 a.m., because that's when I wake up and I start thinking about right away, thinking about product work. And so I can get that, know what's upcoming, now put that kind of on the shelf and begin to think about things while also being aware of what the day looks like. She also sends me on Thursdays a couple of specific decision string questions. One of those are, how did you do with your MITs, which is most important things? A lot of people use OKRs. We also have OKRs, but like that's kind of the way I think about them. How did you do with your MITs, your OKRs this week? And what are you planning to do next week to drive your OKRs further? Now, again, the way that she does this really, really well is she knows what my schedule is. So she's already sent me a weekly look ahead that has key events, and then has a question answers prepared for me that probably are, hey, here's this sales call, here's this product thing that I already knows on the calendar, so that I don't have to do all of that thinking for myself. It's kind of prepared for me because a lot of that context is locked in those tasks and those calendar events and all of those things. So that is one of the ways that we use Digest Builder. So I am going to stop there, and again, open it up for any questions or comments or feedback.
Hi, it's Suzanne here. I actually have a question about the builder. I really love this. I did do a free trial a few months ago, but because I wanted to have a look at it before I sort of engaged with my exec. But we had some issues in the background logging his emails and calendar. I just couldn't get it to upload, so I didn't actually get it to work properly. But I just want to confirm that to use this properly, we both have to be on the platform. So I can't do it without my boss, or because he needs to be in base to do it, or he can use this through Outlook. So I don't know if anyone else is in the same situation, but having to ask my boss to kind of log on to another platform without me fully testing it first was a sort of a big ask. So I'm just kind of wondering what the connection back to Outlook would be. Like, does he have to actually have a login for Base himself and go into this every single day? Hopefully I'm articulating that properly. You know what I'm asking.
Yes, I should have started out with answering that. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, and I would love to help you, Suzanne, to make sure that you can get your calendar connected and get you set up. So the very clear answer to that is no. Your executive does not have to log into anything. They shouldn't have to do anything. In connecting their calendar, as long as you have delegated access, you shouldn't have to have them do anything. There is only in very rare circumstances, sometimes someone in the IT department with admin access might need to approve a link for them to pull the calendar events. But usually that's not the executive in most cases. And you should not have to have anything from them. So yeah, we built this from the start with not having to require an executive to log into something or fundamentally change the way that they work so that you can use Base. Now, it is very likely that in the future we will have an executive app should an executive want to engage with it. And partly that's because we have certain pairings, executives and assistants, that have found that they find so much value in working in this system that the exec actually wants to log in. They want to be able to interact directly with some of these things in a more direct way. But fundamentally, we didn't create the system that way from the start, because we know that many executives are never going to log into something else. And we wanted to make sure it wasn't that. So as long as they can, Suzanne, as long as they, as you send it to them in a way that they would open it anyways. So many, that's email. But then for many, that's not email, because what they say is I manage my executive's email, and that would just be ending up giving them one more thing to do, or giving me one more thing to do. So then a lot of times we'll see in that case, either they send it to them in Slack, or dropping it in Microsoft Teams, or via SMS, if that's the preferred way. And literally it then just opens in a web page. So actually, I'll show you really quickly what that would kind of look like. So in this case, I could just, you get a little preview. You could send this to their email. Again, this would just show up in their email, or you can copy the link, text the link, or Slack the link. And in this case, copy this link. So maybe you drop this to them in, again, I'll just keep using the Microsoft Teams example. So they literally click on it. It opens up this well-formatted, clear piece of document with all of the information, with the links to the things that are relevant for them. So it's not requiring them to do anything really. But I'd love to help you with the calendar issue.
Okay, yeah. I'll reach out to you. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that. Yep.
And there's this handy little chat bubble in the app, and this goes to myself and my team. So anytime you have any issues, you can always just send us a message right here. But you can also email me. That's perfectly fine. It just might take a little longer, because sometimes I'm in meetings like this one. Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. And I appreciate you teeing up that question for me. Other questions or comments? Somebody asked one, are you creating the calendar being pulled from your 365 calendar or Slack? So this calendar here is actually being pulled directly from the calendars that are connected. So in this case, I have 3 different calendars selected, and you can connect again as many as you have. So maybe I only want this one to display, so you can just select in that filter. But this is live time pulling from the calendar that is added. So let's say this one, and now maybe I just want to include this one specific event. I can just drag this and drop it in here. And all of the information here is editable and configurable via preferences. So maybe you want the date to show up, the location to show up, the attendees to show up on every meeting. You can select those one by one, or we have a preference that you can set for your digest. And then every event that you pull in, again, that's why we've made this, it saves so much time, because maybe you want all of that info to show up in every digest. So in the settings, you can set that preference. So, and you can set that per workspace. So maybe for this executive, they want this type of information. And maybe if you're supporting 2 executives, they want different preferences. Well, you can just go into the digest preferences and set all of this information automatically, so that when you pull in those events, you don't have to make any kind of edits or anything like that on the digest. But that was a great question. Subtasks, I saw. I love the subtask too, super helpful. I actually, and this is not the way most executives work, but I actually keep the app open on in my web browser on my phone. So that in the morning, after I've gotten my digest, and when I'm thinking about product stuff, I can just add tasks directly. Although now I've found that since I have Inbox, I usually just put them in Slack and then just click the little button, because then it just goes into there too. But yeah, so that's also a pro tip. If you find yourself using X inbox and you program that the contact in for your base inbox into your executives contacts and just say, hey, send this to my task list, then they can literally just send it to your inbox and it's going to show up there so that you don't have to try and find that thing. So that's another way. Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing and just look at all you fine folk. Is there anything, I'm just going to call on somebody. Candace, is there anything further that I could help clarify or answer for you?
No, not particularly. I've heard of Base before and I get the emails from Paige as well, but what I hadn't really seen is it in action. So thanks, Michelle, for setting this one up, but also thanks, Jeremy and Liz, for giving us a preview and explaining it all to us. As I put in the chat, I love the subtasks. So one thing that we're doing at work currently is we've just sort of implemented Teams in a wider format, and we are actually going to go to Office 365, and that's in the works at the moment. And my main concern for that is that with Microsoft Teams, you can't you can't flag it or action it or put reminders in there. So when people keep asking me, how do you want me to communicate with you? And I'm like, well, if it's actionable, send me an email, because that's how I've set up my Outlook. If it's just to chat or you have a quick question, Teams is fine, or ring me. So it's a really cool platform. And I think the question from Suzanne was great as well, because that was sort of in the back of my mind. I report to several executives, so it's great that they don't have something else to log into as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And what you shared about Teams. So I spoke to one person who I won't name because they work for a Microsoft owned company. And she said that whenever I get an actionable item in Microsoft Teams, I respond to them with an auto response that says, if this is important, send me an email so that I don't lose track of it, which is exactly what we are trying to solve for, because that some people just aren't going to do it, right? And I know from assistant, you go, well, then you really didn't want it that bad, right? But it would be better to be able to make it easier for you. So let me actually just share, I'll share one more time and show you. So it will be a little bit different in Teams just because Teams is different. I was on a call with with the PM from there. And what we wanted to do was the exact same thing where you could use the little bookmark icon, but unfortunately, Microsoft Teams does not allow you to use the bookmark icon. So there is good, but what we're going to do is literally right in this more actions, they'll just be says send to base inbox. So it's not like we're literally working on it right this moment. So I don't even have it in my test environment yet, but that's going to be the action. So while it's not, I was really going for the one click, like click here, click save, and you're done. So you have to hover on this and click on the thing. But as long as that is an action that's in your list, that will do the same thing that we did that I showed for Slack, where it will push it directly to your inbox, because that's a common pain point. So awesome. Carrie, how about you? Is there anything that I can answer for you or clarify further?
No particular questions at the moment. No, I've been following on your Facebook group and things like that. I was part of the conference and everything that you guys did. Was it last week before, whenever that was, the Empower conference and everything. So yeah, it's a fascinating tool, and I'm sort of in between jobs and everything at the moment. So I'm just educating and hoping that, whatever comes up in the future, it's good to have a little bit of background to kick off with, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And yeah, we love it. It feels like both yesterday and a lifetime ago that the Empower conference was. Probably even more so for Liz, because I did very little except for watch and be amazed at the content, even for somebody who's not an assistant. I thought that the things were so great. So Deirdre, saw you raise your hand.
Yeah. So I've just got a question. I'm in I think a unique situation where I
support 2 people. One of them also has another EA, so he splits his day into sort of group business stuff, and I do all the personal family stuff. So he has 2 EAs that he works with. She seems to be a little reluctant to try new technologies. Any clues on how I could get her, and how would it work if he has 2 EAs on base? How does that work? Is that common to have 2 EAs sending to the same direct report manager?
Common, I guess it depends. It kind of depends. We definitely have people. In fact, the one that I said that sends the day pack that their executive director works from, she has 2 assistants that support her. So we have heard this also, though, Deirdre, like where it's more of like a personal assistant and an executive assistant, or however you want to label it, but where you've got 2 individuals. So let me come back to the first question and answer the second question. So yes, Base absolutely is built for this. You can, depending on the account type that you have, you are able to add in additional users. So right here, you're going to see that ours looks obviously a little different because I have lots of users. But let's say for Wendy, I want to add in another person. So because this is one of our kind of test and demo workspaces, I have a whole bunch. But you can just click here to add a user, and if they're already in your account, you could just click them, or you could send an invitation to add an additional one. So yes, actually, this is one of the things we don't talk about a lot, but this is another major pain point that we've heard, is whether you've got multiple people supporting one individual, or when you go on leave, or if you leave that executive, how do you easily hand off all of that information in that context? Usually it doesn't, right? You might have a few piecemeal things that you can hand over, but with Base, you're able to bring them in and literally say, here's all the context, here's all the things. So there's just a better continuity between support. And so we've seen that. So in terms of getting them to like be more open to adopting new technology, I mean, generally I'm obviously biased here, but one of the things that I usually like to do is just start out with, what are some, like, can you tell me any pain points that you have, right? I mean, it's fundamentally the way I started this call, right? Like, can you tell me about some of your pain points, right? And you probably already know some of those pain points because they're probably similar to you have. And if you can help them to verbalize and identify those and go, okay, well, here are some ways that some solution might be able to help you. And that might be Base, and that might be some other completely different solution, right? But like, here's how this might be able to help you be more effective, get more value, whatever that might be. And for me, that's why I typically start that way, because I would much rather, like, I think Base is awesome, and I think there's lots and lots of people who have validated that, but I would much rather find out from you, Deirdre, and Suzanne, and Robin, and all the people on this call, like, what are your pain points? And let me start there, because those are going to be things that are most relevant to you, and point them, like, and say, hey, well, this tool might be able to help you with that pain point. I love the hand raise too. I do that too in meetings sometimes. Anybody else? I can keep calling on people, but I know some people don't love that. But
I was going to ask Liz in the chat room. Liz asked a question about reporting on executive goals on a regular basis. Yeah.
Reason being, for a little context, we, and I'll include this in our follow-up. So we started a 30-day challenge where, and this came out of Paige, our CEO's mind, of trying to see how people are using digests, if they are sending a daily or weekly digest, and kind of seeing how we can get that cadence worked in with our tool. And it's kind of exploded. We launched it at the summit, so we took advantage of the audience there, and we've received great feedback. And part of that challenge is aligning to your executive's goals. to further solidify your relationship, especially as so many of us are still remote, and remote work is looking like a more permanent thing wherever you are in the world. And bouncing off of that, we had an OKR, objectives and key results workshop, where we had a consultant come in and discuss how you align with those goals effectively and some strategies. And just naturally, we keep seeing this pop up in our assistant community. So I was curious to see if anyone is reporting on that in any way, or if that's even a thing within your organization.
I think depending on the level that you're at, like if you're in a business partnering role, supporting at, the C-suite CEO level, then you will be involved in the business objectives. But I mean, you ladies are in the thick of it, so you'll know better. If you're not at that level or engaged at the business partnering thing, then you won't get involved in the business objectives. But I think what I think it's good for is that we need to keep on track. Like someone was saying the other day on a separate call, she's got her annual review coming up, and she's assessing her KPIs. But what she hasn't done is throughout the year collectively kept her wins and her wins, whether small or big. So she's come to the end of the year and she's looked at the KPIs or her executives' KPIs, and it's like, oh, so what have we done this year? So I think we need to track it and continually have it in an area, because 12 months goes quickly. I mean, if someone says what happened in 2020, what do we do? And I think that, do you know what I mean? Like, and where do you keep it? And I think it's a good tracking. But the other thing I think is really important is that we need to know our executives' goals and objectives as well, because we need to work with them to get to that point. But if we don't know them, if we're not contributing, that's okay. But if we don't know them, how can we support them in meeting them?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Thanks. Not to steal Liz's thunder here, but
go ahead.
I think you said it so well, right? Like that. Even sometimes the executives, like they go a while and they go, oh, I haven't actually, like they think about it, right? But maybe they didn't clearly articulate it, which we all know, just like SMART goals, right? If they aren't measurable, actionable, all of those things, then they're not going to be as effective. And so just by you asking the question, hey, I would like to be more aligned with what it is that is impactful for you and for the business. What can you tell me? What are your goals, right? Like, and then you can begin that is the first conversation that will help you move into a more strategic manner, because then you're going to be thinking about how can I support them even like just naturally in accomplishing those goals, because you actually know what they are. And then again, one of the things that really helps is like, can you ask them consistently, hey, what are you doing? Like, I want to help support you. And I will tell you that a great executive is going to be excited about this. Like their assistant going like, I want to help you meet your goals, right? Your business goals and your business objectives. How can I help? And one of the things I would love to do is just ask you, what are you doing this week to move that forward? And then how did it go? Right? Like that alone, just knowing that my assistant is going to ask me those questions and then doing it keeps me accountable, keeps me focused, and allows me to leverage them as a true partner in accomplishing those things, which is just, it's awesome. It's awesome.
And to that point too, so I work alongside Jeremy, and while Natalie Page's EA isn't technically my EA, I would still die without her. She is like my lifeblood. She asks me those same questions every week. And I dropped the link to the resources in here too, because that's the whole structure of the challenge. She asked me, hey, what did you do this week to work towards your OKRs? How did that go? What are you going to do next week? And on her end, it's a simple copy paste to put in a digest for Paige to read. And then she ends up sending it to all of us as a leadership team. So that way we're all aware of what everyone is doing. But just those two questions further, makes her an even more invaluable resource than she already is to Paige and the rest of the leadership team. I'm sorry, there are some sirens going by my house right now. I live downtown, so. But yeah, so I encourage you, and this, if you take away anything from any of these resources in that page, I would say try the 30-day challenge. and join our Facebook community. I'm actually creating what Facebook calls a unit. It's like have you guys seen this? It's like a group within your Facebook group. It's what all the cool kids are doing now. And so that's going to be the dedicated, because Natalie is actually Paige's EA running the challenge, and she's responding to everyone's emails. And now we have over 500 people enrolled in this challenge. Wow. And so while she would love to help everybody, we thought, let's create a community because people are finding so much value out of this. So I would say try that, because it's more, yes, you're using Base, but it's really more, how do you hone your skills and take the next steps to start aligning to your executive's goals? Because those conversations are hard. Even with my boss, that it's hard to say, hey, I would like to align to your goals more. Like, that's kind of it's a tough conversation to start. And so we provide email templates for that and all sorts of stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions? Because I'm mindful it's 5 to 11. Jeremy, I have to say, you made it very simple and easy to understand it. And I think this is the biggest challenge. I mean, some of you have been on previous calls, but, this is our challenge, is we have so much choice with technology at the moment. And it's what's going to suit me and why do I need to use it? And like you asked, the question is, I often ask most of the girls I work with is, what is your challenge at the moment? And then work backwards, because I think, why do I need to use Base? It's not that, it's what am I trying to achieve? So thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Liz, for coming. And I didn't even ask, I hope you're both safe after the elections with all the craziness going over there in the US. That's another conversation. But
yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, lots of wine consumed, lots of relief.
The Groundhog's Day is over, because for 4 or 5 days there, we were going like, is it the same day? Has anything changed yet? No.
Yeah.
At least something has changed.
Yes.
Well, I will. I'll send the recording out post the event, Liz, with all your notes and links. If you just drop an email to me, that'd be great. And look, the guys that are on the call, or the people that are going to listen to this post recording, yet again, it's finding a solution for the problems that you have at the moment. So, I always say, do a try before you buy. I think this 30-day challenge is great. Jump into the Facebook community. I'm in there all the time, and I'm always constantly learning. But I love it that it can integrate into platforms that I'm using, whether it be Slack, 365 Calendar, and then we'll have Microsoft Teams again. And that is the power of technology. You need to always ensure that when you use a piece of technology, that it's talking to your existing platforms that are working. Don't go and start from scratch. Go and find a solution that it all talks to each other. So that is my leaving note on a Tuesday and a Monday for you guys. Remember always to be you, do you, amaze you, and that is enough. You don't need to do any more. And have a great Tuesday, and I will see you all soon.